What is going on, Next Gen fam?
Welcome back.
You know we're back live with Next Gen HQ. We're your boys, Justin, Dylan. We're so stoked for this episode. It's great to see y'all. We're here in New York City. I'm trying to get this video, set up to look as good. Shout out to, we have a team in the office.
You know what's hilarious? Look at this. We got Justin over here, Dylan over here, but the name. We tricked you. You know
we're your guys. We're
shout out
stoked.
Rachel Gross. Shout out Jenna.
Huge shout out.
We got Fran.
Shout out Natasha. Natasha, I know you're getting on this. What's up, Natasha? Huge shout out. So many people coming on. Next Gen fam, look, it's been a crazy couple of weeks. I mean, wow, the world's going on in the last couple of weeks. But you know what's not stopping? Entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs getting up every day to build their dreams, to fight, because it's really hard out there, if you haven't realized, fight the obstacles, fight the challenges, and continue to overcome and try to build their dreams. So we see y'all out there. We really appreciate everything the entrepreneur community is doing.
We're sending our love to you. And as Justin said, momentum never stops. Amen. So we're back here. But before we get into this great interview, we've got an incredible guest for you. But he's coming from this incredible company. I heard that we have AARP on board. Justin, talk to us. AARP.
All right, y'all.
I know him. You know him. What do the people need to know? How are they empowering entrepreneurs to be their best selves today?
Here's the scoop, y'all. You all know, everyone knows AARP. Everyone is a huge fan of their organization. We are proud to partner with AARP. AARP is specifically here working with the next generation to show their support and how they support millennial caregivers. There are a lot of us out there who are now stepping into new roles, even though we are young, looking after folks who are a little bit older than us. AARP is a full suite of resources to make sure that the younger caregivers like us and people our age are fully supported. If you have a caregiving need, whether it's caregiving now during this pandemic we are still in, at home, a student, a millennial, whatever it is, AARP has you covered. We're stoked to be partnering up NextGen AARP. So we have a website, nextgenhq.com/AARP,
link in the comments,
AARP.org/caregiving. Go to both, link them in the comments. It's going to be totally dope to have them here. But one of the best, honestly, things we're super grateful is because AARP brought us the absolute legend we have joining us today. DG, who is this guy?
All right, you're going to meet him in a second. Dr. Gene Accius. He's on a mission to change systems to support individuals and families across their lifespan. People have said he is the king of longevity, the king of aging.
I will outlive you. We need to learn your tricks.
We're going to ask him what he eats in the morning, how he does it. But he is someone who stands for all individuals, whether that's the 5-year-old starting off their entrepreneurial journey, like Justin and myself yesterday, or the 50-year-old starting their entrepreneurial journey, or the 85-year-old. Dr. Gene, he knows what's up, and we are so grateful to have his leadership here. He has been on so many panels. He is a thought leader for AARP, helping them advance and move forward. So without further ado, we got to get the man to the stage. Jenna, please welcome Dr. Gene Accius to Live with Next Gen HQ.
What's going on, my man?
Dylan, thank you so much for the invitation.
I'm really appreciate you being here. You have just the most incredible background. I know we only have so much time, and I want to learn as much as possible from you, because one of the things for us, a lot of entrepreneurs, we know when we get started that the only way we can progress is by learning, tapping into the experience of the next generation who have come before us. So I want to start here, Gene. You have been building and leading high-performance teams your entire career. Can you talk to us about your experiences managing younger folks, older folks together, what that is like? Because a lot of younger entrepreneurs like us are a little bit, scared sometimes to say, hey, how do we think about generational differences in the workplace? So we'd love to learn how you've been thinking about building high-performance teams and building teams with that generational difference.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dylan and Justin, thanks again for the opportunity to talk to you guys today. I'm really excited about this conversation. I think there's a couple of things I would say. The first thing is the fact that many companies across the globe are managing 4 to 5 generations at any given point in time. And in fact, we have a major initiative called Living, Learning, and Earning Longer that is working with 45 global companies that has a reach of about close to 2 million employees worldwide and over $1 trillion worth of revenue. And what our research has shown us is the fact that when companies work with multiple generations, age diverse teams, meaning younger and older workers working together, that they actually tend to do a couple of things at a higher pace. 1, performance is much higher for those companies. 2, retention is much lower, meaning the fact that people are not leaving, or retention is much higher, I should say. The other aspect of this too is the fact that productivity is even higher, And then there's a lot of information sharing. So when you think about the opportunity for younger and older workers to come together and co-create solutions, it benefits the company, but it also benefits those workers. What we've learned is the fact that there's information sharing between the generations. There's mentoring up as well as mentoring down. That there's an opportunity to really think about solutions from a different standpoint because of the fact that you have millennials, you have Gen Xers, you have boomers, all coming together, working to solve and advance an organizational mission. So the key message here is the fact that mixed age teams, age diverse teams, multi-generational teams actually increases productivity, increases retention, increases the return on investment for companies, and you see significant information sharing. So the question is, as a leader, how do you tap into that? And I will tell you that one of the things that we've done is the fact that we know, and myself included, I started at AARP as an intern.
Get out of here, man.
I started at AARP as an intern. And I think that leadership and leadership skills cuts across age. It doesn't, you don't have to be 50, you don't have to be 60 to be a leader. In fact, if you look at your history, as you were growing up, if you were involved in student government, if you were leading a club, if you were in a sport, if you were in a drama club, if you were in theater, if you were hanging out with your friends in the neighborhood and you were influencing them, which is a leadership trait, to do X, Y, and Z, those are leadership skills. The ability to listen, the ability to communicate, the ability to create a vision and then get others to help with that vision. Those are leadership skills, and you can tap into that. The other thing I would say very quickly is the fact that, as you can imagine, sometimes people say, oh my God, you work at AARP? They can't believe that I work at AARP. And I always say that age discrimination is real. And age discrimination cuts both ways, meaning the fact that either you're too old to use that computer or you're too young to oversee and have a leadership position. And I think that we need to disrupt and combat age discrimination because it hampers our collective growth.
Gene, that is incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your story, the mission behind what you're building at AARP. So many in the comments resonating with always lead with a vision. Shout out to Franzi, and Rachel pulled out living, learning, and earning longer.
Love that. Love that. All about that.
We might have to talk to you.
Yeah. We're going to have to co-brand that because we're going to steal that one. That's too good. You have to yourself.
Gene, Justin and I, we learned firsthand getting started at 18, 17 years old that it's tough, right? People don't take you seriously strictly because of your age sometimes. And as you pointed out so wisely, vice versa a lot of the times. Heck, you're 50, you can't work at a startup, right? Goodness forbid you want to start a company. No, we know that to be false. But what I want to ask you, Gene, for all of our young listeners out there who maybe are used to hiring their buddies or going to a university friend or a 22-year-old recent grad to join their team, his or her team, how can they start to bridge the gap and explore what it would be like to maybe lead a 50-year-old or a 60-year-old or, goodness forbid, crazy enough, a 70-year-old, right? We know there's potential there. What's a first step that a young founder can take to start bridging that age divide?
There's a couple of things. One is the fact that I always say start with your inner circle, meaning the fact that start with your family members, start with your friends, start with your community. Interestingly enough, the average age of an entrepreneur is someone roughly around 47. And if you think about it, when you look at the opportunities to engage with across generations, those who are in their late 40s, 50s might potentially, in many cases, have more capital. They have assets and resources that they can actually contribute to your vision. So if you're starting off as an entrepreneur and you're trying to figure out exactly how to get started and how to build that network and how to build those champions or those investors, I always say start with your network. And there's the whole notion of the 6 degrees of separation and start to build from there. And a lot of it is just having informal conversations. Hey, I want to kind of share with you this idea and get your thoughts on it. What do you think about contributing to this aspect of this project and this startup? People over the age of 50, we did a report that showed that people over the age of 50 contributed $8.3 trillion in economic activity in 2018.
Wow.
So that's $8.3 trillion in 2018. So for every dollar spent in 2018, 56 cents of every dollar was spent by someone over the age of 50. Now, if you fast forward that to 2030, to 2040 and 2050, that 8.3 trillion grows significantly. It grows significantly to about 28.2 trillion. And guess what, Justin and Dylan? Come 2030, come 2031, millennials start turning 50.
Wild.
Gen Z starts turning 50 in 2041. So as you can think about it, we're all aging. So to answer your question is to start within your inner circle. And if you don't even know anyone, get online, find out, what are some of the groups that are in your community? What are some investor groups? What are some opportunities to engage? What are some business groups? Don't limit yourself is the key message here. Go on LinkedIn. Find out, what events that are taking place in your local community for entrepreneurs, and go out there and just meet people. Have those conversations, and you just never know where the synergies might happen.
I think a big value that we have in Next Gen HQ that Gene is pulling on here, Next Gen, is the long game. Gene is saying, you look in the mirror, it's going to take some time, but you're going to get older as well. Additionally, zoom out a little bit, look at the economy, look where the flows of capital are going. And you may not have the great network right away, but what can you do today, this week, and next week to start building those relationships? I think that's really resonating. Rachel's saying right here, start with your community. That's obviously make relationships number one, a key value of ours. So Gene's saying, make it about the long game. And in the spirit of the long game, I know we want to talk about caregiving in this conversation, because you have young entrepreneurs all around the world. They're building their business. It's January, February. They think they have enough on their plate. And then all of a sudden, like the rest of us, we're punched in the face in March with this pandemic. I want to transition to caregiving. Has this always been a trend that AARP has been paying attention to, younger, generations caregiving as that caregiving role? Are you seeing a trend? Set the scene for us a little bit. Is this new, or is this something you guys have been doing for ages?
Well, absolutely. This is something that we've been doing for many, many years, is looking at the role of family caregivers. There are over 53 million family caregivers in this country. And what we say is that either you are a caregiver, you were a caregiver, or you're likely to become a caregiver. And out of the 53 million, the vast majority are over the age of 50, caring for a parent, but 23% of all family caregivers are millennials. So they're in school, they're trying to manage school, work, and providing some type of care. In many cases, as you can imagine, their life is interrupted, in part because of the fact that they've taken on this responsibility at such an early life stage, that they're not actually experiencing what some of their peers might be experiencing, whether that is being able to travel pre-COVID, being able to go to the bar and have a drink, or getting married, or all of those things that typically happens after one graduates from college, or whatever your situation may be, the circumstances may be. And as a result, their life is interrupted. What we found was the fact that many of them are also doing complicated medical nursing tasks, like giving injections, tube feedings, wound care, and no one actually showed them how to do this type of training. We also released a report recently that found that 5 million millennials are student caregivers, meaning the fact that they're going to school, they're working, and they are providing care. So just that juggling act, as you can imagine, has a significant impact on your emotional, your mental well-being, and that it really, in many cases, what we found in talking to many millennials, they're isolated. They're socially isolated. In some cases, are really trying to navigate what is a very complex system.
Wow. I know now more than ever, this is important, and I'm so glad we're having you on to talk about this. Dr. Gene, you know that Next Gen, we're all about community, right? We are all about bringing people together. And what I'm already learning so much from our 15 minutes so far today, this is such a commonality, a common thread that millions, tens of millions of people.
No idea the scale.
When I was younger, Dr. Gene, if I may for a second, every morning at the age of 6 to about 10 years old, I would help my grandfather take his blood sugar levels, measure out the insulin, and help him inject it. And I thought I was the only kid, right? He would give me a $1 bill, go buy a cookie at lunch for helping him out every morning. And that was one of the formula memories of my childhood. But ultimately, I never thought that would be applicable. I never thought I could talk about that, relate my experience. What you're telling us, doctor, is that there is a community out there, and AARP is one of the solutions helping bridge this conversation. So for anybody who's out there listening to this right now and saying, oh, this sounds like me, what are some of the tangibles that they could maybe start acting, or how can they get involved with the larger opportunity here to learn and help each other?
Well, that's exactly right. And this is one of the reasons why we actually wanted to do this work, is because of the fact that caregiving people oftentimes are invisible. They feel invisible. The system doesn't see them. The health system doesn't see them. The community doesn't necessarily realize what they're going through. And even in the report that we just released looking at student family caregivers, universities and colleges don't even know that they exist. So your point in terms of feeling as if you thought you were the only one is a common perception because it can be lonely. Let's be honest, it can be very, very lonely. And even though it's rewarding to be able to do those and give that type of care to your grandparents or to your mom or to your dad, when you call up your peers, they may not be able to relate. They may not be able to understand. So we've been doing this to really spotlight the experiences and challenges facing family caregivers, especially millennials and student caregivers. In addition to that, we've created a resource, I think you mentioned it early on, AARP.org/caregiving, where you can actually go on there and there's resources to help you. Whether you're a first-time caregiver and you don't know what you don't know, what are the things that you should be looking out for? Or if you're caring for someone that has dementia or cancer or some form of condition, we have resources to help you. Or how do you navigate the complexities of COVID-19 and the stresses that comes with that? When we talk about self-care, how do you manage that? So there's a range of resources that are available for you at AARP.org/caregiving that can help you. In addition to that, we have community groups that are there for you. We have a AARP Facebook family caregiving page where you can join that community and talk to other caregivers about what they're experiencing and making those connections. So there are resources out there, and we want to make sure that people are getting them. One of the things that we're doing is working with higher education, whether it's the universities, the colleges, trade schools, to really spotlight that, look, you have a significant portion of your student population that is actually going through this and is impacting their academics, is impacting their finances, because if they fail a class, they have to retake it. They have to pay for that class again. And it doesn't help the university if they're not graduating their students on time. And it doesn't help the students if they're not able to graduate and have to pay these additional costs. So we see this as a win-win opportunity. So it goes back to earlier, like, how do we start to change these systems in a way that really benefits people?
Gene, I want to pull on that exact thread, because so much of what AARP is doing with all these resources is not only looking to support these individuals, but looking to change the system of how we think about approaching this problem. I want to flag a comment, Rachel, in the comments here, which I think is really sharp, which is very similar to entrepreneurship. It's hard, it's lonely, you think you're solo, but with resources, with education, with community, and with a systemic kind of rethinking, all of a sudden you can really level up. So I think with caregiving, it sounds like the same approach. AARP is thinking, all right, resources, community, we could educate, but then also we need to really revolutionize how we think and approach caregiving. So
changing lives.
AARP is a massive organization. What are some of those moonshot outcomes that you're looking? What does an amazing system look like? What's the vision for what caregiving you aim for it even to be?
Right. Well, so that's a great question. I think it comes down to a couple of things. One, when we talk about a high-performing system, it really gets into a couple of things. One is affordability, meaning the fact that people can afford the services and supports that they need. And for those who are not able to afford those services and supports, that there's a safety net to provide that for them. What do I mean by that? The average cost of nursing home in this country is over $100,000. For assisted living, it's $45,000. And to get someone to come into your home to provide 30 hours of care is around $35,000 a year, right? The average household over the age of 65 cannot afford that. Their median household income is about $36,000 a year. So the system itself is not affordable across the country. So we have to address the affordability. The other aspect of this is choice. Now, I'm sure if I asked any of you, what's your preferences, you would say, I want a system that recognizes my choices. I want to be able to be in the driver's seat of my own destiny and decide where, how I receive services. Well, in our system right now, because it's so costly, and there's not that many financing options, what typically tends to happen is that people rely on family caregivers who, by the way, provide over $470 billion worth of economic care on an annual basis. So it's unpaid care, right? So it's what Justin was referring to earlier in terms of the care that he was doing. That's unpaid. No one was paying him to do that, right? And you have 53 million family caregivers across the country who's actually providing this type of care. If you were to put a dollar figure on that and the number of hours on that, what you find is that it comes to about $470 billion worth of care a year. Guess what? That is more than the amount that people paid in out-of-pocket care for just health care in 2017, right? So choice is critically important. And then eventually people may rely on Medicaid, which is the safety net program. But in order to get the Medicaid, you have to impoverish yourself. You can only have about $2,000 worth of assets. And if you get into Medicaid, the way that the program works is the fact that if you want long-term care, if you need this type of care, you can automatically get it in a nursing home. But if you want to get it in your home and community, it's really optional, and it depends on the state, and it depends on how many slots they have open. So your choices are limited. So we want to make sure that the system is affordable. We want to make sure that you actually have choice. The other aspect is the fact that we want to make sure that the system has high quality care and that it promotes quality of life. When you talk to people, they don't just want to live longer. They want to live longer, healthier, more productive lives. So how do we go about doing that, right? And then the other aspect is critically important is how are we supporting, recognizing family caregivers who they're the backbone of our systems.
Amen. I love that. So many in our comments, Doctor, resonating with this idea, be in the driver's seat of your own destiny,
options,
right?
You choose how you get your care.
Entrepreneurs, we want freedom. We are chasing to pursue life on our own journey, our own path. And I think if anybody closed their eyes and forgot, the name AARP, they would say it's the same thing about how we want to live our lives, how we want to support those around us. And so I want to get back to you on those spotlights because I know there are a few stories of a family or a caregiver that we want to share on our platform here. But before we get there, Dr. Jean, talk to us about, if I'm a startup founder, a la Dylan, Justin, what can we be doing with our own team to enable them to have the highest quality of their own lives, whether that is them supporting a caregiver. I'm sure at AARP, you are walking the walk. So what are some of these details, programs, or systems that you have put in place with your own team?
So those are a great question. There's a couple of things I would say. I do want to share one quick story though, to really drive the home. So 2 years ago, we had a conversation with some millennial family caregivers, and there was a young lady who came in, and that evening it was raining, it was pouring rain, but she joined us for a general conversation, and she said, "Look, I am a student caregiver. My mom was diagnosed with 4th stage cancer. She was in the hospital for several weeks, and as the caregiver, she spent a lot of her time on the hospital floor doing her homework while just to be near her mom, and then would go to school and then come back. And then she said her life turned into sticky notes, meaning the fact that because she's trying to take care of her mom, she's trying to take care of herself, she's trying to go to school, the lights went out, she totally forgot it to pay the light bill. Her mom's prescriptions was around $4,000 a month. So she was trying to figure out, how am I going to pay for the prescriptions while also paying for the light bill, while also paying for the mortgage? That is one example of many. Another example of a caregiver said was the fact that she had to leave the workforce to care for her dad who had Alzheimer's. And when she tried to get back into the workforce, employers could not understand why there was this gap in her employment. And when she explained that she was caring for her dad, they seemed even more confused because, again, they didn't see the typical profile in their mind was not someone who was young doing this type of work. So one of the things that we've done at AARP, because we want to walk the talk, one of the things that we've done at AARP is called caregiving leave, meaning the fact that we have offered everyone within the organization up to 2 weeks of dedicated paid time off. That's separate from your vacation, and that's separate from your sick leave. So you have these 2 weeks that you can take consecutively to care for someone. And clearly there's other things that we can actually do to support our workforce. The other thing is the fact that from an advocacy standpoint, we've been advocating to ensure a couple of things. There's the what is referred to as the RAISE Act, which is the Recognize, Assist, Inform, Support, and Encourage Family Caregivers Act. And AARP has been a major champion of that, which is to come up with a national strategy to address many of the challenges family caregivers are facing. Both at the federal and state level, we are advocating very strongly for tax credits to help support family caregivers. Why is that? Because family caregivers on average spend about 20% of their income on out-of-pocket costs related to caregiving. And is even higher for millennials because their salary is much lower, right, when you start off.
100%. 100%. Seems like awareness is so much of what you're doing, and even by telling these stories, by the work that you're doing, is getting people to be aware of this is what people are going through. They're human, and based on the stats, I mean, Malachi's like mine is blown in the comments by all these stats. It's crazy large number of people. So there's a lot of people going through this, and so much of the work is spotlighting that this is normal and it's all right. And there are organizations like AARP who can help you through that and give you that honestly sense of community and education, which is so key. Gene, we are running up on our time, and I want to make sure I get to ask you about longevity, because this is something my mom wants to know, my grandma wants to know, and I want to know.
Shout out mom in the comments, Ronnie.
Mom's in the comments here. Everybody is thinking, but I love the way you put it earlier, Gene. I don't want to just live longer. How do I live longer? How do I live healthier, be happier, more productive, whatever it might be? So
give us the secret.
Basically, give us the secret sauce. Where do we go? AARP, what are you guys working on? What are your tips? I'm looking to get at least 120. Malachi's in the comments 130 right now. So what are we doing? How do we get there?
Well, there's a couple of things I would say. We know because advances in technology, advances in medical technology, advances in terms of public health, that we are, for the most part, living longer. Someone born today, an average child born today, has a 50% chance of living past the age of 100.
Whoa!
So we know that, but the point is, how do we live healthier and more productive lives, right? And then a lot of that has to do with a couple of things, and you can go to aarp.org to learn more about this. One is really thinking about health promotion, the ability to really think about how you're maintaining your mental, physical, emotional health and well-being is critically important. And so we have some resources for you there. It's about brain health and thinking about how you keep your mind active and stimulated. There's information for you there. The other aspect of this too is the fact that we know that people, that there are social benefits with working. And we know that people are living longer and either want to or need to continue working. So what are the skills that one might need in order to be competitive in the marketplace of the future? The other aspect of this too is the fact that social connections. It's critically important to stay socially connected. So being isolated is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Wow.
So social connection, pick up that phone, call your neighbor, hang out with a buddy, call your friends. There's so much benefits with regards to being socially connected. So those are just a couple of tips, is really thinking about remaining healthy, exercise, eating right. It's also about the community in which you live, work, play, and pray, and ensuring that it's a healthy environment. And then, of course, it's thinking about the economic opportunities with productive living. And then, of course, being connected is critically important.
Gene, this is incredible. I think I'm going to go call my entire phone book just to get some extra baggage.
I need the reps in.
I need the reps. I need that. And we'll see you at 100. We'll run this back in 2100.
Dan in the comments, Emma 203. They're like, with Gene's tips, like my expectancy is cranking up right now.
Gene, we are at that time of the interview where we're into our final question here, and something we love to get the perspective on our guests who join us. And I think you in particular, given you started as an intern at AARP, now you are a senior thought leader, building teams, helping determine the path forward for one of the world's leading organizations. I want to ask you, Gene, what gets you fired up about the next generation of builders, the next generation of entrepreneurs, the listeners who are here today? What gets you going that you can't wait when we're 150 to see come to life?
Well, I love that question. What gets me excited about the next generation is the fact that there's this sense of this attitude, this mindset that there's no problem that's not solvable. This fierce determination to think and look at an issue and say, you know what, I think we can do this differently. And I think that mindset is what's going to drive us into that next iteration of our better selves, is the opportunity to think about how do we co-create, is the opportunity to think about how do we build anew. And one of the things that we're realizing from COVID-19 is the fact that our systems, many of the systems that we thought were in place to protect us, need some work. And I am extremely hopeful that as this next generation, given the mindset, given the passion, given the creativity, given the open-mindedness of working across generations, that we can co-create and build something much stronger, more resilient, and more powerful. So that's what gets me excited.
Next gen entrepreneurs, Gene is calling you out. He's saying you have the mindset. We have some problems over here with our public health space. Let's get to building and let's get to the solutions. Next gen, we could not thank you for tuning in. Dr. Gene Accius, Senior Vice President of Global Thought Leadership, huge baller in the public health space, an incredible guy. We so appreciate you joining us and going through this. We're going to share more of those AARP resources in our comments below. Gene, thank you so much for joining us on Live with Next Gen.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate you, Doctor.
Be well.
That guy's the man.
That guy's the man.
He is the man.
That guy's the man. Totally incredible.
My goodness.
Look, I want to be honest. Caregiving is not something that was top of mind for me. I did not think it was so big. I did not think it was so prominent. I definitely did not even come close to the stats that Gene was balling on.
No.
Crazy, a large number of young entrepreneurs who are thinking about this.
Well, I think anybody out there can relate. It's earth-shattering when a friend, a colleague, a team member calls you up and says they have to go home and care for mom and dad. They're sick. You give your whole heart.
Totally.
The sad reality is that is happening every day to millions. So I can't wait to be part of that solution. I can't wait to see what people come up with to build a better system. As Dr. Gene said, changing systems to change lives.
Yeah,
so
amazing.
Powerful.
And my final flag here is, look what he said. He said one of the most things he's so excited about the next generation is that mindset to solve problems. Entrepreneurs, we don't have all the solutions, but we're going to look at a problem. We're going to freaking run our head into a wall enough times to maybe get some progress going. So Next Gen fam, we love you. We appreciate you tuning in. Huge thank you to AARP for making this possible. Satvik, I know you care about this next generation and these caregivers as well, man. So huge shout out to everybody who's joining. We look forward to having you back.
If you enjoyed this, nextgenhq.com/AARP. Check us out. Momentum newsletter in your inbox Monday night. Team, we appreciate you. We'll see you next week. Much love. Stay healthy, guys.